Texting. It's the contemporary mode of communication. It's how it's done. To my generation, really new. You know, there are a lot of terms we can use. We can toss out a few sort of categorical terms like jargon, style, tone, inflection, vocabulary. I don't even know where to begin, but I will start and see if I can cover everything. If you're trying to keep a relationship healthy, thriving, nourishing to both parties, maybe you've discovered that texting is a real pitfall. I have. I don't know if this is gender-based or not. My generation tends to be. My generation tends to be gender specific when it comes to behaviors. The millennials, not so much. So I'd like you to take whatever is offered here and apply it as you are able. If there's something that's not relevant, just move along. Let's talk about conversational style. When you're using a device that permits you only a few sentences at a time, that alone, to highly verbal people, is confining and problematic. Many people, men of my generation specifically, would prefer to address one point at a time, one question at a time. If you ask more than one question in the same text because that's your conversational style, watch out. The answer you get might confuse you. Why? Because you don't know which of your questions is being addressed. You don't know whether the answer applies to the first question you asked or the second. Particularly if the answer you get is vague and doesn't spell out that it's addressing a specific question. Remember in school, they always said to us, answer in complete sentences. There's a reason for that. If somebody asks you a question in a complete sentence, answer the question in a complete sentence. Make sure you include the subject as well as the verb or any of the modifiers. Watch out for those who have difficulty spelling. There are some very bright people in this world who cannot spell. It's a dyslexic issue. And then you have the added problem of autocorrect on these phones. Always ask for clarification if you don't understand what somebody is saying. And don't just say, what do you mean? Say, this is the part I don't understand, and put it in quotes. If there's a phrase that you don't understand, say, what does, quote, blah, 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 quote, mean? That always helps. But what if you're dealing with somebody who doesn't want to accommodate you? Doesn't want to communicate clearly? That should be a red flag. If they act annoyed with you for asking for clarification, you've got a problem. What if your style is so verbal that you address at least two topics in one text? The person you're texting might respond to only one aspect of what you said and ignore the rest, and you might not be able to tell which part of the text they're responding to. Is it the first thing you said or the second thing you said? And you might respond as if you understand what they're talking about, but they might be talking about something else. Miscommunication tears everything apart. Inflection. Granted, most printed communication is flat, emotionally flat, unless icons are used, emoticons are used to color the tone of your message. You had better use the exclamation point or the emoticons to make sure that your friend or partner understands when you're kidding and when you're not. Additionally, what if you're at the beginning of a relationship and you want to impress? That's a problem. Just be who you are. Don't modify the way you communicate just to accommodate someone else unless the way you've been communicating has caused communication problems. If you've been in a relationship for a long time and all of a sudden your partner, who usually has trouble spelling, suddenly sends you something that's impeccable and employs vocabulary that is new, you don't ever remember hearing that person use those words before, there might be a third party interloping, maybe even being enlisted to taunt you or to cover somebody's tracks. Texting can make or break it, whatever it is. If I were you, I would establish a plan going forward. Okay, we're going to text. Are we going to text in short, single questions? What works for you? What doesn't? What works for me? Here's what works for me. Clarify it at the outset so that you don't have to wonder and then challenge the other person and cause annoyance and a communication breakdown. Plan ahead. Watch out for sudden changes in tone, inflection, spelling, and vocabulary. That should signal that you're not really communicating.